Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet, the John Campea Show. Cody from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, TV, streaming, and all sorts of good things. And ladies and gentlemen, himself, coming down from Olympia, is our very own God of War. He is the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, I'm elated after we saw Eternals. I have many thoughts.
And we are going to get to your thoughts in just a little bit. It was really fun watching the movie with you last night. For those of you who don't know, that's something Rob and I did. We went out to go watch Eternals last night. Rob's going to talk a little bit about his impressions of the film. And we got a few other things we're going to talk about, because here's how today's show is going to go, guys. We break it down into two parts. In the first half of the show, we're going to take some predetermined topics. And then the second half of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. If you've got a comment or question that you'd like to have read on the show or an upcoming companion video, simply use the tip link that's down in the description. Just click on it there, or you could enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question read on a show, of course, if it's appropriate for our show. And of course, you'll be supporting our channel at the same time. And all of us involved here at the John Campea Show, thank you guys so very much for your support. One other bit of housekeeping here, guys. Don't forget, if you need your daily fix of the John Campea Show, but you can't always have a YouTube video on in front of you, good news, there's an audio-only version of the show called the John Campea Show Podcast that you can go and subscribe to on your favorite podcasting choice of app. Whatever podcasting app you use, just search for the John Campea Show Podcast. Go subscribe to it, so when you're commuting or at the gym or at work or whatever, the show is there when you need it. Okay, guys, with that down and out of the way, let's dive into our main topics here today, shall we? And how do we select our main topic? It's easy. You guys come up with our main topics. See, whenever you come across a big story, topic, or issue that you guys think we need to cover as a main topic here on the show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show, again, if we think it's worth doing here on the show. So maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. That down, let's get into main topic number one. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Martin. And Martin writes, "Hey, John and Rob. We all know Rob has been hyped for Eternals, and now that he has seen it, and John, you've seen it a second time and had the opportunity to reflect on it, what do you think now?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Martin. And yes, of course, last night I had my second chance, my second opportunity to go and watch Eternals. I saw it for the second time yesterday. But more important than that, one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett went ahead and saw it with me. So he had his first experience with it. For those of you who don't know, I did put together a little video of us coming out of the theater and Rob's reaction. It's up on the channel right now, so you can go and check that out a little bit later. But generally speaking, across the board, the reviews, or not reviews, the reactions for Eternals have all been pretty much across the board positive. I mean, I can't think of any real strong negative ones, like a lot of them calling it epic, sweeping, all this kind of stuff, a lot of dope. There's some superhero heist. Initial Eternal critic reactions offer mostly the highest of praise and blah, blah, blah. But it's a dense movie. We talked about this the other day. It's a dense movie. There's a lot to unpack. I'm not 1,000% sure how the average Marvel movie fan is going to react to it, because this does not feel like a Marvel movie to me. I've said that a few times. It feels like a Chloe Zhao movie, a very different kind of DNA. Because you guys know, I've said this before, Marvel films are all radically different. Like, one movie can be a political thriller, one movie can be borderline horror, one movie can be all comedy, one movie can be a straight up action film. I mean, they do a really good job of varying it up. But at the end of the day, it all has the Marvel DNA. And so when you walk out of it, even though like Ant-Man and Winter Soldier are completely different films, you still walk out feeling like you've watched a Marvel film, and that's a good thing. And you don't get that feeling walking out of Eternals. It's very different. So I'm very curious to see how a lot of these folks, the average folks, are going to feel. But generally speaking, the people who've seen it are feeling pretty good. Anyway, this comes to us from the folks at Superhero Hype, who write, with its massive ensemble cast of characters, mostly new to the general public. Art house director eschewing special effects where she could, and stories seemingly unrelated to the Avengers' adventures. Eternals seemed like a bigger than usual risk for Marvel Studios. Judging by the Eternals' critical reactions coming out of the junket, press and trades at the premiere Monday night, however, it paid off. Save a mini controversy involving a variety spoiling certain details. Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. Director Chloe Zhao and the cast remain critical darlings. And of course, that comes to us from Superhero Hype. So, Rob, it's generally going over well. They are critical darlings. But nobody cares if they're critical darlings. They care about what Robert Meyer Burnett thought about it. And I'll tell you what, so did I. Because, you know, I watched the film, a lot to process, and you were the first person I want to talk to about it, but you hadn't seen it yet. Because, you know, you go all the way back. You're somebody who appreciates the Jack Kirby era. You understand the Eternals. And I was really dying to tell you. And I told you going in, I said, I had no idea if you were going to absolutely hate this movie, if you're going to absolutely love it, if you're going to fall somewhere in between. But I really wanted to know what you think. So, Rob, you saw Eternals. What'd you think?
Well, I will say this. You know, I've got to be careful what I say, but it's been a long time since I haven't stopped thinking about a movie. And my first thoughts are, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all of the characters that we've seen so far, with maybe the possible exception of Shang-Chi, but I grew up reading Master of Kung Fu comics, so I knew about Shang-Chi, but everyone knows the characters. Whether you've watched them in animation or read the comic books, everyone knows Spider-Man. Spider-Man was on the Electric Company. You know, so these characters are very familiar to most people. And they understand what kinds of stories they're going to get. The Eternals, while yes, they have been in comic book form and the characters have interacted with the greater Marvel universe over the years, they don't have any real definitive story that anybody can point to. Even comic book fans would be hard pressed to go, what are the Eternals exactly? Now, what they are is you'll notice in the credits of this movie, Jack Kirby gets a singular created by credit, which I thought kudos to Marvel for putting that in there in the credits. I mean, it flat out says, I think like in Blade, it said Blade later was created by Marv Wolfman, but it really was nice to see Jack Kirby acknowledged straight up in the credits because, you know, this is such a product of his imagination. And Kirby had these giant, crazy cosmological ideas about the cosmos and things. I mean, there's a reason why they picked him to adapt 2001, A Space Odyssey. And that said, this film really, while it's set in the Marvel universe, it doesn't really have to do with the principal Marvel universe as we know it. What it's dealing with is the larger universe that the MCU exists within. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's a cosmology here that I absolutely loved. And it reminded me of many different, it touched on things from some of my favorite and some of your favorite science fiction films in kind of weird ways. There's a little taste of Highlander in this movie. And I think I know how Chloe Zhao pitched the film. And, you know, when I came out of the movie, I said to you, this movie reminds me of Ridley Scott's Prometheus. And I've heard somebody tweeted to me because of your video, John, saying that that one of the producers talked about how Chloe Zhao talked about Prometheus a lot. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, it's interesting. I did not know that when I said this movie was like Prometheus. But the most I'm going to say about Eternals, other than the fact I loved it, is here. I know how Chloe Zhao pitched this movie to Kevin Feige. And I bet Kevin Feige was the only person in Hollywood who's like, oh, I totally get that. Here's Chloe Zhao's pitch for Eternals. She said, what if we did Ridley Scott's Prometheus, but the story was told from the engineer's point of view? That was her pitch. And I'm sure Kevin Feige went, that's a great idea. Now I'm going to leave everyone to tell me whether I'm right or wrong about that. But if you watch Prometheus and you see like what the cave paintings on the wall and all that, there's definitely some DNA in the movie in Eternals, and I loved it for that reason. And beyond that, it did what Prometheus failed to do. Prometheus touched on all of these ideas, but didn't know what to do with them. Whereas Eternals took all of these ideas and added an overarching cosmology to the Marvel Cinematic Universe that has already been there in the comics. It's already been touched on the MCU multiple times, but they did it in such a way that they wrapped everything. It's pretty audacious from that standpoint. And I look at Eternals as a straight up thoughtful science fiction movie. If this movie was not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I could see Christopher Nolan directing this movie. I could have seen Ridley Scott making this movie, or somebody else, because that's what this movie is. This movie deals with big ideas. It goes back to the ideas of ancient astronauts like Eric von Donigan's Chariots of the Gods, which was something Ridley Scott touched on, but I think that Prometheus wasn't as effective. And, you know, when I was watching this movie, John, for the first half, I was enjoying it, but I wasn't connecting with it the way that I wanted to connect with it. And then there was a point, I can tell you exactly when it was, but I'm not going to.
I think I know exactly what point it was, too.
Where I'm like, oh. And then I was totally, fully invested in this. And then it went on and took an interesting turn that I wasn't expecting. And by the time the movie was over, I felt that there was a lyricism and a poeticism. I know I'm making this movie sound like it's wildly entertaining, but that's how I felt about it. And when it was over, I think it joins in my mind the pantheon of not necessarily great comic book movies, but great science fiction films. And kudos to Chloe Zhao for doing that, because unlike Prometheus, she was credited on the script for this movie. And I really think that that's why she probably went in, and I understand how she pitched this movie. And I think that she made the movie the exact movie she wanted to make. And kudos to Kevin Feige and Louis D'Esposito and Victoria Alonso for letting her make the movie she wanted to make, because there's things in this movie that are pretty audacious. And if you really think about what they're saying, it takes the Marvel Universe to a whole new level. And I, for one, can't wait to see the ramifications. And also, if you know your comics lore, there's a lot of impact to the future of the Avengers here, potentially, depending on how they go.
So if you had to sum up in one sentence what you thought about the movie, how would you describe it? Or don't describe it. How would you describe your feelings about the movie?
I feel it is a tremendously, like I said, a tremendously lyrical, poetic, yet wildly entertaining, action-packed, and thoughtful science fiction saga.
And I'll tell you what, right up until we walked out of the theater, I wasn't sure. Like, I saw you getting giddy during the credits and the end credits stuff, which we won't touch on here. Yeah. But I mean, I honestly didn't know. I had no idea right till when we walked out of the theater. I'm like, I don't know what Rob thought about this movie. And then I asked you, and you're like, dude, I love this movie.
Yeah, in the middle of the credits, I told you how much I loved it. And then I said to you, there's one thing that has to happen at the end of this movie now.
And then that happened.
And that happened. And that was another thing, is that it totally, but then something happened that I didn't expect that left me going, oh, I mean, there's something really, really deep that happens. I don't want to say what it is.
Yeah, we can't say what it is. Yeah.
And I can't, it made me think, like, I don't quite know what the ramifications are, but it sets up something really interesting for another Marvel property not many people are talking about yet.
Right. And so and like I said, I'm still unpacking a lot of it, even after watching a second thing. And what the movie does for me, though, and I talked to you about this a little bit, and we can't go into any details in the film, because one of the criticisms that I have, and you saw the one part that I said was, there's a CGI element in this movie that happens at a certain time that is just terrible. And you picked it out right away what it was.
Dude.
When it happened. That was awful. But we won't talk about what it was. It's just that there was a really bad CGI moment in the film. But one of my criticisms about the film, I will say this, is really not a criticism about the movie. It's a criticism about the MCU as a whole, which, you know, Rob, you and I were talking about this a little bit before the show started. And for those of you who watch me for a period of time, you'll remember I've said this for years now. I said, my one concern about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is it's getting way overpopulated. And I've said for years that, you know, one of the things that used to make the older superhero films so special, and even the early MCU films so special, was the sense of awe and wonder of the extraordinary within the mundane. When Sam Raimi made Spider-Man, the world had never seen anything like Spider-Man. This guy with this super strength and speed and agility, and like the world hadn't seen it. The world was in awe and wonder as there's this extraordinary thing, Spider-Man, within the mundane, the world that he lived in. Same with Christopher Reeve's Superman. Hell, even with Iron Man. You know, Iron Man, there was an awe and wonder to what Iron Man was and what he was doing with this suit. The world was astonished. Or when Thor showed up. And I've been saying for a while that one of my worries about shared cinematic universe and the ever-expanding MCU is that it's going to feel like every 7-Eleven on every street corner is going to have 4 superheroes sitting on the roof patrolling for crime. There's nothing special anymore in the MCU. And in this movie, there's a part that you see in the trailer, all right? So I'm just talking about a part you guys have seen in the trailer. There's a part where you see in the trailer where like a bus flips over and, you know, Gemma Chan turns the bus into all just rose petals, and then Kit Harington is saying, why didn't you guys help fight Thanos or anything like that? What really stood out to me was within this Marvel Cinematic Universe world on screen, within this world, nobody was fascinated anymore. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, there was a giant monster running around the streets, in the streets of London. Not a big deal. We see this every day. You know, even the Kit Harington seeing Gemma Chan, it's like, so you have superpowers. Okay, well, hey, why I didn't see you guys helping fight that. Like, there's no sense of awe and wonder anymore in the MCU because it's so overpopulated. It's so overpacked. There are everybody has a next door neighbor on their block that has superpowers in the MCU now. And nobody's astonished or anything anymore. There's even something that happens at the end, which we will not say, that should have been like a mind exploding moment that was really kind of reacted to by a lot of people dwelling that world. It's like, oh my gosh, did you see that? Because it's what they're doing in the MCU now. And to me, again, that's not a criticism of the movie. It's really more of a manifestation of a worry that I have about the universe as a whole moving forward. And it's only about to get bigger, Rob. You know, we got X-Men coming, Fantastic Four coming, a lot more characters coming down the pipe. How did you feel about that? Did you feel that at all? Or do you think I'm like really being way over too sensitive about it? How do you think?
Well, I would say this. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is now creating levels of reality itself within its own universe. And I think like there's even something that happens in this movie we were talking about that should profoundly affect every human being on Earth, theoretically, more so than even Thanos' snap, because people didn't know who Thanos was. You know, they just disappeared. Like if you were living in Seattle, like if my mom was snapped away, she would be like, what happened? And then she would come back into our townhouse wondering, where did I go? How did that occur? So people didn't really know what was happening. But after Thanos' snap and after things like what happened in WandaVision, once it's all reported on the news, that the people of Earth have to be profoundly affected by the fact that they didn't just learn aliens exist in the Battle of New York, but now they realize that the universe is a far stranger, far more like our vision of the universe, even the vision of the world's religions are not big enough to encompass what's really out there. And how does that profoundly affect the universe that the Marvel, I think they need to do a Marvel series now about how mankind has been affected by this. Kind of like, one of my favorite Marvel series was a series called Marvels that was painted by Alex Ross, and it was really all told from this perspective of human beings who were having to deal with a world where superheroes existed. I think now the Marvel Cinematic Universe needs to do a series, and I don't know what that series would be. We talked about maybe a version of the X-Files from what came out of WandaVision.
Right.
I think they need something like that. The purpose of it is to show how has mankind been affected by, in a very short period of time, learning about everything that's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because I agree with you. The universe is becoming to the point where when you have monsters running around the streets of major American cities, and you have weird earthquakes, and you have all this crazy stuff happening, how does that affect us as human beings? And I think it's getting to the point where unless we understand that, and that's what WandaVision did really well, it showed the perspective of us on the ground, like, what is going on here? What's happening? What's with this anomaly? What's happening here? We need more of that. I think they need to do an entire series about this, because if they don't do that, then the same thing is going to happen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that happened to the Matrix sequels, where the human beings in the Matrix cease to matter, which means the stakes go away. If the regular man on the street no longer matters and no longer feels a sense of wonder in the mundane, well, then you've lost what the Marvel Cinematic Universe is. And all of these heroes are supposed to protect mankind, but if everyone on Earth is a super being or is aware of super beings or whatever, then the super beings cease to be super.
Yeah. And again, it's that little sense of, it's amazing when we get to watch some of these films and like an average character sees one of these beings, right? And the awe and wonder and the fantastic nature of it that they feel, we as the audience then feel it through them as our vessels on screen, as our avatars on screen. And when that gets lost, we lose them. Again, not a criticism of the Eternals. It's just that the Eternals really is starting to reflect that overall problem in the MCU. And I hope they find a way to kind of correct that a little bit. But anyway, guys, Rob, I love the fact that you loved it. I'm so happy that you had a good time with it. The question is for you guys. Where's your expectations right now for Eternals? We're getting closer to its release date. However you guys are feeling, jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move into main topic number 2. And our second main topic. Rob, what is our second main topic today?
Well, our second main topic comes to us from Kyle. Hey, John. So, putting it lightly, Fandome this year, as we all know, was a dud. But what baffles me more is the Flash Season 8 trailer was just released on Tuesday, a few days after Fandome. Why didn't this release at Fandome? This shows the further incompetence of this year's event, in my opinion. What are your thoughts? Thanks. Well, John, I have to tell you, I was a little baffled by this as well, but I think the easy answer, the simplest answer, the Occam's razor answer would be that the trailer wasn't ready. There was probably visual effect shots they just couldn't complete on time because they've been shooting Flash and they're maybe they're not ready. But although it's getting, I don't know when the debut date is coming up, right? I was a little baffled by this too, and I think that maybe the Fandome event they wanted it to happen now for some particular reason, which I'm not really sure about. But it did seem odd that mere days after Fandome, they dropped the trailer for arguably the I've always thought Flash more so than Arrow was the cornerstone of the CW Arrowverse, and it's kind of their signature show. And I was very surprised by this. And Digital Spy says, The Flash has teased more details of the upcoming 8th season in its first full trailer. The CW dropped the new trailer today, October 19th, showing Grant Gustin's Flash teaming up with characters from throughout the Arrowverse. Season 8 is kicking off with a 5-episode event on November 16th, with episodes becoming available to stream on the CW the following day. The first arc is titled Armageddon. Now, I want to point out, DC did a big Armageddon series in the comics. And they haven't really necessarily billed this as the same crossover event that they had in previous years, like Earth X and all that, and Crisis on Infinite Earths. But I'm really excited for it. I was like, I'll tune in. If they're going to touch on Armageddon, I like that storyline. So I'm stoked. What about you?
I'm not going to lie to you, Rob. I don't buy the theory that the trailer just wasn't ready. They've known. Well, here's the thing. They've known when DC Fandome was.
Right.
And I watched the trailer for Flash season 8. That was not some high piece of art that's like, no, it's not quite right yet. We need 48 more hours to bring this trailer to perfection. It was. I'll be honest with you, it looks stupid. I thought it looked stupid. I've kind of fallen off the Flash train. I have loved this show. And like 7 years from now, when I look back on shows that I watched in this era, I will remember Flash fondly. I have really enjoyed this show, but I have fallen off it now. It's, last season was just, that was it for me. I didn't even finish last season, to be honest with you. I got a few episodes into last season. I kind of gave up on it. But the bigger thing here, though, is, Rob, that they're asking. This is not a trailer that took them 3 months to put together.
Right.
This was like random clips from the upcoming show and slap it together and put it in, and it was fine. It's fine. But I don't buy that 2.5 months ago, when they knew when the date of DC Fandome was, they couldn't have had that or something very similar ready to launch. And Rob, it raises the question. Because the day after DC Fandome, do you remember this? Story got released that of a new casting in the Batgirl movie and confirming that J.K. Simmons was going to be Commissioner Gordon in it and all that kind of stuff, which somebody wrote into me and said, well, wait a minute. Why didn't they announce that at DC Fandome less than 24 hours ago? And now here we are just a little bit later, and we're asking now the question, wait, you got this Flash thing and you didn't talk about it at DC Fandome? The event that's supposed to be, hey, everybody, this is the once a year, get the family together. Come on, all DC fans are going to talk about, yeah! Golden boots, everybody, golden boots. They're sitting on a trailer for people who are still diehard fans of the show. They are sitting on a trailer with a first look of Flash Season 8 at DC Fandome, and their way of thanking everybody for tuning in was not to show it to them. Say, now you're going to have to wait for a couple of days, which raises the question, what was the point of DC Fandome? And I don't even ask that sarcastically, Rob. I don't even ask that sarcastically. I legitimately am now starting to wonder, what was the point? Like last year at DC Fandome, it was clear that was an event for the fans. They delivered last year. And maybe they set themselves up for failure because last year's event was so good. I mean, it's not as good as an in-person Comic-Con or anything, but for a digital event, the first one they did, they knocked it out of the park. They did it about as well as you could have done it last year. But this year, the more I reflect on that train wreck of an event, is what was the point? Like, you're not going to even tell them all the news that you have to share. Yeah, no, we'll share that news tomorrow. We're talking about Batgirl on DC Fandome. Tell people about the new characters. Tell people about, J.K. Simmons. Have J.K. Simmons give a little hello message or something like that. Nah. We'll release that on Deadline tomorrow. They've got the Flash fans there, Rob. They're sitting on the first look at Season 8. Nah, Wednesday. Let's show it to them Wednesday.
What did you think that the thinking was then behind that? Why bother?
That's the question. See, I see this pop up, and the question is, what was the point? Why bother? Like, I feel like the people in charge over there were like, well, DC Fandome was a big hit last year. We need to do it again. But I felt like the way they organized it last year, they knew why they were doing that event. They knew what they were trying to accomplish. They knew what they were trying to hype up the DC community. They were trying to hype everybody up, creating a virtual Comic-Con to give everybody these huge experiences. And this year, I just felt like they had no idea what the point of this thing was. Are we here to promote new brand deals with Puma and Dove soap and Cam Newton's hats? And are we here to promote this? Well, yeah, but let's not actually show them anything. Like, look, they knew that people were tuning in to hear them talk about not the TV show, the Flash movie, They wanted to hear them talk about the Flash movie. They didn't even bother to talk about the Flash movie. They literally put up a 1-minute clip in the almost 4-hour event. They did 1 minute of the Flash movie. This movie that's supposed to be this huge, pivotal, upcoming event that will help and influence and shape the direction of the entire DCEU thing to come. And they didn't even talk about it. From the TV side, you have pretty much, now that Arrow isn't there, Flash is your cornerstone show right now. That's it. And you had in your back pocket the first look at the new season. You begged the fans to come and tune into this live stream, and you didn't show it to them. You just kept it in your pocket. Say, now you'll wait. So it just, so Rob, you asked me, what was their thinking behind it? I don't have an answer for it. It has honestly just left me wondering, what was the point of DC Fandome? What were they trying to do? And I wouldn't feel this way if, like, they dropped this trailer of Flash 3 weeks from now, right? But the very fact that the Batgirl news came out the next day, then like 48 hours later, the first look at Flash season 8 comes out. I don't know. Do you got a theory, Rob? I mean, about why, like, that news comes out after it, the new trailer comes out after it. Like, what do you think, as you reflect now on DC Fandome this year, why did they do it? What was the point? What was their philosophy of making DC Fandome this year, do you think?
Well, look, I think on one hand, I would say this. We got really intriguing looks at The Flash. I mean, the movie The Flash, Aquaman, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, Black Adam. So there was enough there that I can understand why they went forward. But I think, like everything else, I don't think that people are really thorough anymore. And honestly, I can't believe that there was not that trailer that dropped for the Flash, the CW Flash, that wasn't something that people like. Why didn't somebody who's on the production staff of the Flash call up and go, hey, shouldn't we, like, why wasn't that in there? Are they trying to downplay? I really don't understand. To me, it just screams of incompetence. And incompetence, like I'm telling you, I like marketing people. But sometimes marketing people are spending too much time looking at spreadsheets and thinking about analytics and not doing their jobs. Marketing people need to think out of the box. They need to be more like Don Draper. And Fandome is a marketing event. And if anything, I would think about, okay, what is it? Here's everything that we're going to promote that's upcoming in the DC universe. Wouldn't the 8th season of The Flash be pretty much at the top of that list? Especially if they're doing a crossover event with the rest of the Arrowverse. And obviously, either to me, it's a failure on some part of the supply chain to be topical about it. And I don't get it. But I don't think that, look, I think we live in a world now, John, where a lot of people are not being encouraged because we live in a corporate environment, that there are people that might be like, maybe we should touch upon this. Well, no one's told you anything about that. Maybe you shouldn't say a word because maybe it's beyond our pay grade. Oh, okay. And nobody says something when really the idea should be marketing people should be the first people to be thinking out of the box. And I think our corporate culture might have something to do with all of this. And then you get events that are sort of half-baked. And I mean, look, Fandome is so between Star Trek Day and DC Fandome, they are so overthought, and they are so, like, people watch YouTube channels like ours, John, because we're off the cuff. You do plan. You're like, okay, here's the topics we're going to discuss, but you never send me a talking points list going, well, Rob, I know we both saw Eternals, but I don't want you to mess it up. So here's your talking points. You never send me that. And the reason that people watch these shows is because we're speaking off the cuff. We're speaking from the heart. And if Star Trek Day and DC Fandome have taught us nothing else, that, my God, I mean, there is no candidness at all in any of these events. They're so constructed and so overbaked that part of the energy that all the hosts should be, the interstitials with the people and the stars and they should be just as much fun as seeing a trailer, and they're not. They're bereft of any kind of spontaneity or any energy, and I think that's part of the problem.
You know, it's funny because on that point, like everybody knows I'm not the biggest Gal Gadot fan in the world, but she shone last year at DC Fandom. Like when they did the whole Wonder Woman 84 panel, now Wonder Woman 84 didn't turn out to be that great, but still when they were doing the Wonder Woman 84 panel at DC Fandom last year, like Gal Gadot understood, I'm the lead of this film. Everybody's gonna be looking at me. I'm gonna lead the charge for hyping people up and being excited about it. And when you're watching Gal Gadot last year, it's like she emanated this joy. Like, I am so excited about this project, and I'm so excited for you to see this project, and let's talk about it for whatever. And there was a sense, because Rob, you keep using the word marketing, and I think you nailed it on the head, because DC Fandom to me last year did not feel like marketing. No. It was marketing, but it didn't feel like marketing. It felt like the DC community was coming together and say, let's show you some stuff, but we're also going to tell you about it. We're going to talk about it. We're all going to, we're all just going to soak in this together, whether it's James Gunn doing his thing or the big Matt Reeves presentation or the Wonder Woman 84 thing or whatever. They just had, there was a sense of they truly were getting together to celebrate this stuff. This year, granted, it was less time, but that's not that big of a factor because out of the 4 hours, 3 hours was filler. I mean, 3.5 hours was filler. This year was just, hey guys, here's our first look at Black Adam. Now, here's our first look at Flash. And it's like, okay, you could have just dropped that on YouTube. There was no need for a special event. Whereas last year was, okay, here's our look at this. Now let's talk about it. Let's dive into it. Let's talk about what we were thinking. Let's talk about what it is we're trying to give to you guys and blah. This year it's like, here's our 1 minute clip. Boom. Next item. Here's our this. And it was just, you could have just dropped 4 or 5 things on YouTube. The Shazam stuff, the Flash stuff, the Aquaman stuff, Batman, obviously. You could just drop those on YouTube over a couple of days. I just don't get. It never felt like the event was needed, unlike last year, which did. So I hope they learned some lessons here. And all I can say is I feel for people who are still really watching The Flash, because that's got to be frustrating. You tuned in to watch for maybe your favorite DC show, and all they can say is golden boots, everybody. Yay, season 8's coming, and then move on, only to find out that they had a trailer. They had the first look at footage from season 8. They just didn't want to show it to you. I think that's frustrating. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this whole thing? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, with that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Nathan Billups, who writes, "Greetings, John and Robert. Marvel has put out a lot of surprise hits, but I think the biggest one in the MCU has been Guardians of the Galaxy. I love these movies and just saw Chris Pratt say that they've already started shooting Guardians of the Galaxy 3. James Gunn also said that Guardians 3 hasn't been delayed, unlike all the other projects. What do you think, or why do you think that is? And are you excited that it started shooting?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Nathan. And yes, Guardians of the Galaxy for sure is kind of the poster child. Is the poster child for Marvel having the ability to surprise everybody, because everybody forgets now, because Guardians of the Galaxy is a big hit now. But when they announced that they were doing Guardians of the Galaxy, everybody was like, who? They're doing what? And everybody kind of questioned Kevin Feige and Disney and Marvel's sanity, building off the big hits that they had been building up with these established iconic characters. And then they were going to do Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, everybody today rewrites history and say, oh yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy, big hit, but they forget what a huge risk that was. That was a massive roll of the dice. And it was the first time in a while that like either DC or Marvel really came out of the gate with a complete unknown set of characters on a big budget, now in outer space, all this kind of stuff. And it was huge. And it ended up being fantastic. Guardians of the Galaxy is amazing. Now, I like Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Rob, as much, like maybe even nearly as much as the first Guardians of the Galaxy. It was still good. I still liked it. Mary Poppins, y'all. But I thought it was a bit of a step down, but I was super excited. And Rob, one of the other reasons I think we should be talking about this is the James Gunn element, but we'll get to that in a second. This comes to us from the folks over at Coming Soon who write, following the recent casting of Will Poulter as fan favorite Marvel hero Adam Warlock, Guardians of the Galaxy star Chris Pratt took to Twitter to reveal that production on James Gunn's long-awaited third installment has finally begun after 4 years since the premiere of the sequel. Despite Marvel Studios' recent release date delays on other MCU films, Gunn has confirmed that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will still be keeping its May 5th, 2023 theatrical release date as planned. All right. Rob, when I see that a movie, we call it the tangibilization, when I see a movie has started production, it's like, oh, now it's real, right?
Right.
But I'll tell you what my mind instantly went to. Chris Pratt put a video of himself sitting in a getting ready to go on set chair and his hair. When I saw Chris Pratt saying, we're on set of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we started shooting, my mind instantly went back a couple of years ago to the bomb that dropped about Disney and James Gunn had parted ways, about that whole drama that went on with James Gunn, the old tweets, Alan Horn, all that kind of stuff, and that whole drama, and how much of a shock that was to the fan community world. It's like, are you kidding me? You fired James Gunn over 10-year-old tweets? But that aside, it was a major shift and really the first big blemish on this huge happy MCU Marvel family portrait that they had been painting. And it was the first kind of cracks in the concrete, and it was really weird. And so I couldn't help but think of that today, Rob, as I watched Chris Pratt in that chair saying, oh yeah, the Guardians 3 with James Gunn, we start shooting today. Because that was a long, weird journey they went on that. As far as the whole part about the fact that Guardians 3 is like one of the only projects they have that didn't get moved. Because remember, yesterday we talked about how Marvel has moved like almost everything on their release schedule. Guardians didn't. Rob, my only theory on this as to why Guardians didn't get budged at all was that maybe Guardians 3 is the most disconnected of all the upcoming movies. This, Doctor Strange has to come out before this comes out, before this comes out, before this comes out. Therefore, if one moves, you kind of got to move all of them. Blah. This kind of hints to me maybe that Guardians 3 is probably more of a truly standalone film where it doesn't really matter where it falls in terms of the other films. Again, I'm just speculating on that. But anyway, Rob, let me put it to you. Number one, what do you think about the fact that Guardians 3 kind of snuck up on us by surprise, came out of nowhere, and is now actually in production? But secondly, why do you think it became like the movie that didn't get moved when a lot of the other ones did?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't say it snuck up on us because that script was finished ages
ago. Yeah.
And the fact that they brought James Gunn back as a director, and we know he finished his work on Peacemaker, and Suicide Squad's come out. So to me, it's only, and he's been talking about it in social media that he's starting up again. And so I don't think it's come out of nowhere. And I think that, that first of all, I think it's just far enough out that they didn't, it can keep its date because it's beyond the movies they're moving. I don't think they've pushed a movie past it, have they? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
So I think that date was the date that they were like leaning up against because they've already announced it. So they figured, yeah, it might have something. I mean, I would say that after Eternals, it would be very interesting. I would imagine that somehow Guardians 3 has to have some kind of a tenuous connection to it.
Well, I mean, what we can say, because it's already public knowledge, we know that Celestials are in Eternals. They showed that in the trailers. In Guardians of the Galaxy, there are two major references to Celestials. Number one, Nowhere is just a big floating head of a dead Celestial. And of course, Peter Quill's father was himself a Celestial. Peter Quill is part Celestial. So there's already, without giving anything from Eternals away, we can at least say there's at least that connection a little bit.
And also, doesn't the Collector talk about Celestials? Don't we? We've also seen that, whether it's a video or something, where we actually see
flashback of the Infinity Stones talk. Yes, we saw Celestial
so we've
there.
seen that. And also, I mean, there's other things that we've seen involving Celestials that speak to stuff that may or may not happen in future movies.
Right.
So, I think the Celestials moving forward, as you said to me, you said something really interesting, that with the Celestials obviously being a presence in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and also we have Kang, and Kang has always been a big bad in the Marvel Universe. We know Kang's in Quantumania. We saw a version of Kang in Loki. And Kang has been a frequent Avengers foe. Like, I think they're setting up a number of different threats potentially in the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which we will see. I'm very curious, because all of these things are much more cosmic in nature. Kang's traveling through realities, the quantum universe, the multiverse, whatever. Celestials obviously were involved with the creation of the universe and are definitely, maybe might even exceed the Infinity Stones. How does potentially Galactus fit into all this? I don't know. But, it's funny to me, John. I am, as a middle-aged man close to death, I find myself giddy at the prospect of still being excited by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, it really is like, I love Marvel Comics growing up, and to see the comics being translated into these giant on-screen entertainments, just writ large on the big screen, that just keep getting bigger and bigger. It's kind of neat, man. I mean, it's nice to be excited about something. And I'm still excited about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And we've got a new Spider-Man movie. What's not to love, dude?
Well, the question is for you guys. What do you think about this? So the Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we're a long way away from the announcement came that James Gunn and had left Disney and all that kind of stuff, and yet here we are again. It started shooting. Also, the fact that it's the one film that didn't get moved off its release date. What are you guys thinking about all this? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down out of the way, let's now move on and start taking your live comments and questions, shall we? Once again, if you want to get a live comment or question on the show, simply use the tip link down in the description below, or enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. And thank you to all of you guys who have supported us. By the way, I want to give a shout out. During the show, a couple of people have been sending in super chat badges in the live chat. Picky Picks sends in a super chat badge. Thank you, Picky Picks, as does S. Joseph 007, Rhett Proctor. Guys, thanks so much for sending in those super chat badges and supporting our channel on that level, guys. We appreciate it very much. Okay. Let's get on over now to your live comments and questions, shall we? We'll get started off here with an anonymous viewer who writes, everyone keeps talking about Spider-Man villains from Sam Raimi and Mark Webb films crossing universes, but ignoring the fact that they'd also be jumping ahead 20 years in time. Also, Oscorp Tech from 2001 really has nothing on Spidey's Stark Tech from 2021. That's actually not a bad thought there. It's like, okay, Rob, in Spider-Man 2, Doc Ock had this cutting-edge technology. Well, that's old, antiquated Atari 2600 technology compared to today. By the way, is that your dog in the background I keep hearing?
Yes, okay. It is my dog.
I just want to make sure I wasn't hearing something else from somewhere. Okay, so...
No, it's me, and I apologize for that.
That's all right. It's all right. I didn't even think about that. Like, he's driving an old, beat-up Pontiac Sunfire coming into car show with a brand new Ford Mustang Mach-E, right? Sort of thing. I didn't really think of it in that terms. What do you think? How are they going to rectify that, or do they even worry about addressing it?
I don't think they need to worry about addressing something like that.
Yeah, they probably don't.
I mean, it's like, people sometimes, dude, people like to be frugal.
There you go.
Or less ostentatious. It's like if you're incredibly wealthy, does it behoove you to drive, a hypercar like a Koenigsegg or a Lamborghini everywhere you go? someone's going to come and look at your car and wait for you when you go to the grocery store to buy a tube of toothpaste. And then when you walk out, you get carjacked.
All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Haigu Gull writes, any recommendations for films with young people losing themselves in the city nostalgia feeling? Movies along the lines of Scott Pilgrim, Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, which has the same actor as Scott Pilgrim, Loser, or Dawson's Creek's Last Season, although preferably without Michael Cera. You mentioned a couple Michael Cera things there. Oh, I have no idea. None. I don't walk around with those film lists off the top of my head. That's a pretty specific ask about young people losing themselves in the city nostalgic. Rob, you got one?
Yeah, a movie called Free Enterprise about kids who have an obsession with William Shatner
and get to meet their hero. There you go. That's a deep cut, Rob. I don't know how you pulled that one off. I don't know how
I wish people could get it on physical media or streaming, but hey, you know.
Soon. I'm sure someday soon. All right, next one up. We've got Marie Seifring who writes, hey, John and crew. It was good to read in Deadline that the IATSE and AMPTP reached a settlement to avoid a strike for now. Good luck to everybody who works in the entertainment industry. Again, it is good news. It is good news, but do keep in mind that the union leaders forged the agreement with the producers, but now the union members have to vote to ratify it.
Yes.
There's a lot of reports saying that the union won't ratify it. I disagree. I think it will get ratified. I think, again, as my real estate agent always told me, the sign of a good deal is that everybody's a little bit unhappy. I'm sure the producers are a little bit unhappy. I'm sure the union's a little bit unhappy. But that shows that there was compromise. I think the union will ratify it. And then if they discover there are some really big outstanding issues, they'll address it again in 3 years. But I think it will get ratified. Rob, last time we spoke, you said you thought it was about 50-50. What are you thinking right now?
Well, they haven't really unveiled the entire new contract to the members, the constituency.
Right.
And
they've only got the highlights.
And I am curious to see how that's going to go. Curious.
All right.
So it's hard for me to say without reading the actual contract, to be honest.
Yeah, it is difficult. All right, next up, sticking on IATSE, Anton Riley writes, so the IATSE deal may not be all done, John. The union needs to vote on this, and so far I'm seeing it's an overwhelming no. I'm not seeing that at all. I'm seeing a lot of people complaining about a lot of stuff in it, but I'm not seeing that any indication that they're going to vote no on it, but that's just me. Now, I don't blame them. 10-hour turnaround time sucks, yes, but it's an improvement over what it was. No one should work 14 hours in any business, no matter how much we all want our content. Again, you're looking for improvements. And Rob, the reality is there's a part of you that understands. Like, you ask anybody that works on a film set, they understand time is money. You need to move as fast as you can, and that will equal long days. And that's part of the gig. But you have to make it manageable. You have to make it so it actually works. And while the 10-hour turnaround time does seem ridiculously short, it does represent an improvement over what it was. And again, we'll see. Again, I think the union will vote to adopt it. If not, then what's going to have to happen is the union votes it down. Then all the union leaders are ejected out of their office or resign, because the deal they think got turned down. They're going to have to get new leaders in place, and then the negotiations are going to have to happen all over again. I think, again, I really do think it gets ratified. And then they go back to the table again in 3 years. But you never know. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I know a few people in the union. Everybody's grumbling a little bit, but I've been told they're going to vote to approve it. But I mean, that's just the exposure I've had. Maybe other people feel differently. So we'll find out, Anton. We'll find out. All right, next up. Anton also writes, so there won't be a strike Monday, which obviously didn't happen, but there might still end up being a strike down the road. Possibly, but I doubt it. But it really looks like IATSE union leaders failed their workers with these talks, settled for scraps. Again, that's not the impression I get from the people I know who are in the union that I've spoke to. Again, did they get everything they want? They did not. But I think there's an awareness that they weren't going to get. Like, whenever you go into any negotiation, you have to be aware you're not going to get everything that you set out wanting. That's just not going to happen. And I think they recognize that they have made some substantial gains. Now, I am not in the union, so I can't speak to that firsthand. I'm only kind of relaying what I've heard said to me, so I can't verify the veracity of that information, but it just seems like that's where they're going, and I don't think there's going to be a strike. Not this year. Not this year. All right, but we'll find out. All right, Dangerous D writes, hey, John, I remember the movie Upgrade was an innovative film. I thought for sure there was going to be a sequel. It made money at the box office. Fans were blown away. Last I heard, they were trying to make this into a TV series, but no news has come out. Do you know of any news? I do not. I do not. Rob, I mean, I know Upgrade, that was a real pleasant surprise of a little action film. I mean, honestly, I thought the action in it was better than the overall movie was. Like the overall movie's solid, but the action is insane and crazy. It's got a pretty weird sci-fi ending to it, but whatever. But I'm not surprised that there's been no sequel. I mean, the reality is, while it did well for what it was, it didn't do all that well that it demanded a sequel. Now, I still think there's a chance something comes along. I really do, but I have not heard any news of any further development. Have you heard any news of another Upgrade project moving forward?
No, and that was made by Lee Wanell, who worked with James Wan to create the Saw franchise, and he wrote and directed that film, and he went on after that to go make Invisible Man for Blumhouse, which I really liked. I think Lee Wanell has been, I don't think he gets enough credit as a writer and now as a director. He is definitely, I think, one of our best genre voices out there who's doing some original work. I think even Upgrade has been, people have looked at it and it's already been ripped off a couple of times. And I have a really beautiful version of it from Second Sight on Blu-ray. And I really like Upgrade. It's not, like you said, it's not by any means a perfect film. But you know what? I really enjoyed it. I thought it had some verve. I thought it had some originality to it. The first time I saw it, I was surprised by it. I'm like, I don't know where this is going. And I really liked it.
All right, next up, we got Benjamin Mason, who writes, hey, John, have you perhaps seen The Guilty on Netflix? I watched it, and wow, why haven't I seen anybody talking about this? Jake Gyllenhaal deserves an Oscar nom, in my opinion. I thought the director did outstanding with pacing, completely surprised me. I have not gotten around to watching it yet, but I've heard nobody talking about it. I mean, that's the weird thing. When I first saw, Rob, the kind of the spots where I said, oh, okay, so this could be interesting. But then I heard nobody talk about it. Now, I've got one particular friend of mine who watched it and didn't like it at all. But that's the only person I've spoken to that said they didn't like it at all. But, Rob, I am surprised that I hear no buzz about this thing at all. Did you have a chance to sit down and watch it? I haven't yet. Did you?
No, I have not.
All right, let me bring something up here. Let me just check this out.
It's no Squid Game.
It's no Squid Game. Let me see if I can pull up this thing. So where is it? Okay, so this takes place. I'm just trying to see what people were saying about it. And for whatever reason, I can't get the Rotten Tomatoes page does not want to load for this thing. Nope. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here wasting screen time, waiting for a stupid website to load, and it's not loading at all. So anyway, we'll move on from that, unfortunately. Oh, no, there it is. So, okay, so this is interesting. It's only got a 48 or 46% audience score. It's got a better critic rating. It's got a 72, which is pretty solid. It's got a 72 critic rating, but it's only got a 46%. So you're seeing like a 26%, not that bad, a 26% difference between the critic rating and the audience rating, but the audience rating is not very good on it. So that would probably explain a lot why we haven't seen or heard any buzz about it. So there's that. I'm not excited to watch it because it's a Netflix original. By the way, Hula Goo 79 sends in a super chat badge to live chat. Thank you, Hula Goo. Appreciate that very much. All right, let's keep going here. Next up, Just Your Average Jose writes, The Ringer has a great 8-part podcast. The Ringer does some good stuff, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, The Ringer has a great 8-part podcast series about Siskel and Ebert. They are the founding fathers of movie reviews in a visual format. They absolutely are. They were influential to me in how to watch movies. Did they influence you in any way? Would like to know Rob's take as well. Well, I mean, Rob, we've talked before about this. Like when I was a little kid, growing up, like it was the first of its kind that I'd ever seen. Like guys on TV talking about movies. Like I used to watch that. And then I used to love watching Leonard Maltin. I would watch Entertainment Tonight as a kid just to see if Leonard Maltin came up, because I loved watching Leonard Maltin. Now Leonard Maltin never had another person there to discuss with. Leonard Maltin was always just giving a presentation, but I used to love Leonard Maltin's movie reviews and Entertainment Tonight, and Siskel and Ebert. Ebert is my all-time favorite film critic. Not because I agree with him, because quite frankly, Rob, I disagreed with his opinion on movies about 50% of the time. But to me, the job of a film critic is not to say what I agree with. The job of a film critic is to express how they saw it and express it in a really effective communicated way. They're really effective at communicating why they felt what they felt. And on that level, that inspired me. And I was always, as a kid, I loved movies, and they just helped deepen that love of movies. But anyway, Rob, like, how do you think Siskel and Ebert was influential on you, if they were at all?
Oh my God, dude. Their first show, Sneak Previews, started, around the time Star Wars came out, and I watched it on, I want to say PBS. It was on PBS. Till 1982, and it was at the dawn of the video era. And the first time I ever got mad at critics, they did a show on horror films, and they lumped in things like I Spit on Your Grave with The Howling, and I was like so mad. And then they, of course, then they did At the Movies, and then Siskel and Ebert At the Movies. I mean, they were hugely influential. People forget, in Willow, Ron Howard directed, the Lucasfilm produced Willow. There's a two-headed dragon or creature in that movie called an Ebersisk. And they named it after Siskel and Ebert.
I did not know that.
The Ebersisk. Yeah, and you can buy the toy. You can get, there's a Willow toy of the Ebersisk. And it was named after Ebert and Siskel.
All right.
And by the way, his books, Roger Ebert's books, I love them almost as much as I love Pauline Kael's books of movie reviews.
All right, next up, we've got Don J, who writes, "Hey, John, did you see the new Rocky IV Director's Cut trailer? I have not. Stallone,
Dude!
I have not. Stallone has apparently added 40 minutes of footage in this cut. Any interest? Honestly, no. It's playing one night only on..."
Wait, what?
Hold on, let me finish the email. One night only on November 11th, and later will be on digital. I already got my ticket. But look, okay, first of all, you got to understand, I don't really care about director's cuts. I don't care much about them. The movie that got released in theater is the movie. Now, don't get me wrong. I am super interested in DVD and Blu-ray extra content that shows deleted scenes and stuff like that. So on that level, yes, I'm interested just to see what other footage there was. But to me, Rocky IV, well, first of all, Rocky IV is already awesome. It's probably my favorite Rocky movie. That or Rocky VI. But I already love it, but no, but that's just because my underlying thing is I don't really care much about director's cuts. Like even the Lord of the Rings extended cut, it's like, I like it. I like the extended cut very much. It's really interesting. But to me, when I think of what is Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring, it's that theatrical version. That's what it was. That's what you released. That's what it is to me. But anyway, Rob, I have not seen this trailer. You seem pretty excited about it. Tell me why.
Well, first of all, this is my last episode of the John Campea Show that I'm doing. I must leave on under protest. No, I'm kidding. First of all, I am not a fan of Rocky IV. I thought it was one montage after another. And when I saw the trailer, I knew Stallone was doing this. Coppola's been going back and revisiting his films, both successfully and not so much. I didn't like the Coda, the Godfather 3, but I really like what he did with Cotton Club, and I can't wait to see what he do with Outsiders. And I hope he does it for One from the Heart. But so the idea that Rocky IV has 40 more minutes, I knew, because I'm a fan of the Rocky franchise, man. I saw the original Rocky in the theaters. I love Rocky 2. I love Rocky 3. And Rocky 4 disappointed me because it felt so slight. And I love those characters. And, Apollo, well, spoiler alert, Apollo Creed dies in the ring. And I thought that even when I saw it in the theater, both Rocky 4 and Cobra were movies I felt were let down in the editing. They were cut to the bare bones MTV music video style, both of those films. And to hear that Rocky IV has a director's cut, and then when I saw the trailer, I'm like, oh, like now it's going to feel to me like a real Rocky film with the emotion and the pathos. I know that's silly for me saying the ultimate Cold War, more so than Rambo, and he's like, I'm here and you're here, and if we can change, and then everyone can change. I'm like, come on, man. So Rocky IV, I'm looking forward to this director's cut, John. 40 more minutes. It's like a whole nother movie.
Dude, this might be your last episode. I love Rocky IV. It's my favorite of the Rocky films. Anyway, I will watch the trailer.
Your favorite Star Wars movie.
Absolutely it is, because it is the best Star Wars movie, and well-educated people will agree with me. But I will check out the trailer.
No,
just
the
because
trailer's really good.
I'll have to check it out.
It's really good. And it's funny. I keep forgetting there's a one night only Fathom event. I really do want to go see it in the theater. We should go.
You know what? Why not? Well, let me see the trailer first.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Jake G writes, I don't understand why people who are already excited for No Way Home are buying tickets day one want to see another trailer. If Toby or Andrew are shown in another trailer, wouldn't you rather be surprised by going into a movie with the crowd? Well, look, how do I say this without sounding vulgar? You know what? I just admit what I'm about to say is pretty vulgar, but it illustrates the point. Okay. So I don't understand, like, because I've heard this from a lot of people. If you're already looking forward to the movie, why would you want to watch another trailer? Well, because it's a taste. It's a taste of what you're going to get. That's like saying, and again, I apologize for the vulgarness of this in advance, but it illustrates the point. If you're out with like the girl of your dreams and you know you're going to have sex later with her, well, you're going to have sex with her later. Why did you get a blowjob from her earlier in the evening? You're just going to have sex with her later. Well, that's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous question. Because, and that's what's saying, like, well, if you're good, you're going to see the movie later. Why do you want to see a trailer? No, because people get excited about getting a taste. People get excited about getting a taste. Now, I'm not one of those myself. Like, I'm not like always dying for the next trailer or anything like that, but I get it. There's a lot of fans who are dying for that next taste because they love Spider-Man. They're going to get the full thing later, but if they can get a little taste of it now, they want to get a taste of it now. So, hey, that's my take on it. So I warned you that was probably a little bit vulgar, but I mean, it gets the point across.
Wow. Right. I guess I'm sticking around.
All right. Next up, thanks for writing in, Jake G. Next up, we've got Sam Fisher writes, the other week I tipped and I said that I just finished Eureka. Right after finishing Eureka, I started and have now finished Warehouse 13. Have you seen it? I think I like it more than Eureka, but the first few episodes aren't great. It really picks up at episode 4. I do remember Warehouse 13, and I was a big fan of these little weird, sci-fi network shows that would come out. I'm not gonna lie to you, Rob. I didn't love Warehouse 13. What's interesting about it is I remember it starred one of the guys from Star Trek: The Next Generation. It was not one of the regular cast members, but it was that short guy he was a collector of sorts, I think, and he was trying to steal data. He was trying to
Saul Rubinek.
That's his name, and it had him.
Fajo.
So I was interested. It was kind of cool. He was in it. I'll be honest with you, the show did not capture my attention though, and I remember I fell off it pretty fast. Rob, do you remember Warehouse 13?
Yeah, because I had some friends that worked on it. I mean, I thought it was. I enjoyed it. It wasn't. It didn't capture my imagination the way some shows did, but it was enjoyable. It had good characters, and I liked the fact that my friends really got it helped their writing careers, so they learned a lot on the show, which was good.
All right. Next up, we got Tom Wyenberg, who writes, I saw Spencer last night at Filmfest Ghent in Belgium. Wow. Possibly the best of 2021. I'm hearing such good things about this movie. So far for me, superb direction, an incredible story, heavy with emotion, teared up watching. Judging by this year's films so far, Kristen Stewart will get an Oscar nomination. Rob, I remember when they announced that. I mean, look, I believe Kristen Stewart's a very good actress. I've always thought that. But when I heard that she was cast to play Diana, I was like, that seems like an odd choice. Like I couldn't picture it, right? But everyone, not that I've spoken to 50 people who've seen the movie, but I've spoken about 7, 8, 9, 10 people who've seen the movie. Everyone, it's like when I ask them about it, the first thing out of their mouth is, Kristen Stewart's getting an Oscar nomination. Kristen Stewart's getting an Oscar nomination. Like, that's all I'm hearing. Like, everybody's saying she flat out destroys this role. Like, she kills it. And I think it'd be very interesting and appropriate if here we are now, so many years after the Twilight stuff, Robert Pattinson is now today one of the most respected actors in the industry. Like, a lot of fans still haven't got over the fact that he was in Twilight because they've never seen all of his other work that he's done since then. But everybody in the industry, Robert Pattinson is one of the more respected actors in the industry right now. And if then now Kristen Stewart, after doing that horrible Charlie's Angels movie, comes out and gets an Academy Award nomination, or hell, what if she gets an Academy Award on top of that? It's just going to be a really interesting thing. Rob, the people you know and talk to, have you spoken to anybody who's seen Spencer so far? What have you been hearing about it?
I have not, but you know what? Funny enough, Elizabeth and I watched that trailer this morning over our morning coffee, and I hadn't seen it. Spencer, it looks terrific. I was a little dubious, but she looks great in the role. I mean, I have a kind of a not love-hate because I don't know her. I can't hate her. But I've always been sort of lukewarm on Kristen Stewart. Sometimes when she's in movies like Personal Shopper, I'm really fascinated by her. And I think she is a good actress. I mean, all the way back to things like Panic Room that David Fincher directed with Jodie Foster.
Yeah, where she played Foster's daughter.
Yeah,
I thought she was really good in that.
She was really good in that. And I think she looks incredible in Spencer. And Elizabeth turned to me when the trailer was over. She's like, oh my God, I have to see that. I'm like, all right, baby, we'll go see it. It's all good.
All right. Next up, we go to, we got lost in our spot here. Give me a second here. That's spent there. Dangerous D writes, hey, John, like you, I was disappointed at DC Fandome last Saturday. I thought we were gonna a Zoom meeting with cast members just like last year. I was expecting news about Green Lantern series, but I guess Cam Newton's hats were important. I hope next year's is better. I'll be honest with you. I don't think they're gonna do one next year. Yeah, I don't think they're going to do one next year. Now, apparently, Rob, the numbers came out and they got like twice the viewers this year than they did last year. Well, yeah, because last year's was great. So everybody tuned in. I tuned in.
I did too. You did a whole live stream.
Yeah, but and it was this year's was only 4 hours, which I thought was a really good move. Make it all one day, a big all killer, no filler. At 3 hours, at 4 hours, it was still all filler and no killer, or at least very, very little killer. But so yeah, it was building out the success. I don't even know that they'll do one next year. If they do, I know I'm not going to watch it. I'll wait until 5 minutes after it's done and check YouTube for anything legitimate that they put out, and I'll just watch it then. I'm not going to waste my time again next year. So I don't even know if they're going to do one. Rob, over under 50% that they do a DC Fandome next year.
Oh, I think over 50% because people tuned in.
Yeah, but again, I think they only tuned in because last year's was so great. Now everybody's disappointed. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to go under on 50.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say 10%, but I'll say under 50.
They still, I mean, look, you know what, John? I have to say, my fandom, like I watched the whole live stream of the Eternals red carpet, and I really appreciated, I don't know who the hosts were, the two hosts that did that live red carpet event. They were really good and they really knew their stuff. So kudos to Marvel for that. And I thought they asked great questions. They obviously were incredibly knowledgeable. So again, I don't know them, although that redhead girl was really cute. But I mean, she's like some science blogger or something. I don't know them, but they both did a fantastic job. I would like to see DC Fandome be live. Yeah.
That's, to me, that's the only thing that will then get interested in me. Do it live. Say, come to St. Louis, next July in St. Louis. We're going to do a 2-day DC Fandome thing, but I mean, you do that, I'll probably be there. I'll probably go.
It's a virtual environment, so I understand why it's hard to do live, and they have a lot of people beaming in with pre-recorded segments. I would say, you know what, you got to abandon that. Find a live, interactive, virtual Fandome you can put it in. But you know what? I understand it's hard to get all these people that are working on films together. At least have live feeds, because it really hampers. You got to talk to people live. The whole point of going to fan events like Comic-Con is you actually have the people that you're fans of in the room with you, and you can ask them questions. There's interactivity, there's humor involved. It's immediate, and that's what makes fan events fun. Watching pre-recorded stuff is, frankly, it diminishes the experience, and it also doesn't do the job I think they hope it does.
Yeah, I mean, there's no spontaneity, because it is all pre-recorded. It's like, okay, so we can edit this. Yes, okay, let me do that again. Blah blah blah, and it's just, it sucks the life out of it. Whereas last year, even though a lot of it was all pre-recorded, like, again, I'll go back to that Wonder Woman 84 panel one. It felt like it was. I felt like they just all got together in the Zoom call, hit record. Didn't feel like they edited it. I mean, you could tell there were some edits, but it felt actual. It felt spontaneous. It felt live. This was all very scripted, produced, heavily edited. Takes the life out of it.
Yep.
All right. Let's move on here. Next up, Matt Sifjada writes, this Matt Reeves Batman iteration provides an opportunity once again for a very interesting take on the Joker. After Lighthouse, the perfect Joker for Pattinson would be Willem Dafoe. Movie gods let it finally happen. Honestly, I'm over it. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they were to announce someday that Willem Dafoe was going to play Joker, sure. But I don't think this whole X actor and X role, there is no one person that's perfect for the role. There's 100 actors that they could date who would do great. And if Willem Dafoe did play a Joker someday, I mean, he's an Academy level actor. Of course, I'd be down for it, but I don't think he's like the one guy. I think a few years ago, Rob, some people did remember that fan art with Willem Dafoe's face, but they painted it digitally as Joker. Yeah. It's like, yeah, that looks awesome, and that gets everybody excited. But there's a lot of people who can play him other than Willem Dafoe. But yeah, if it was Dafoe, I'd be down. What do you think about that, Rob?
Well, I mean, look, I don't want to be ageist, and I love Willem Dafoe. I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time is To Live and Die in L.A., where he plays Rick Masters, evil counterfeit artist. I love Willem Dafoe. I've loved him. Catherine Bigelow's first film, The Loveless, he stars in. Love it. But, you know, as Joker, it depends. If he's going to play Joker, he's got to be with a age-appropriate Batman, I think, which could be good, like Dark Knight. Awesome. Dark Knight Returns or whatever. That could be outstanding if they ever do that. Like Willem Dafoe and Michael Keaton doing the Dark Knight Returns. I don't know how you reconcile that with the canon, but with the multiverse, who knows? But you know, it just depends. But then again, I think Willem Dafoe can do just about anything, John. You know, I think about it, I can't reach it.
He can do just about anything.
I have my Willem Dafoe. Wait, oh, here he is. I mean, you don't see his face, but I do have this. I know, right? It's a third-party figure. It's not a hot toy figure.
I was going to say, that doesn't look like a hot toy figure.
No, it's this was a third-party figure, but I do love it. So,
by the way,
it's called The Fiend.
Willem is 66 right now. Willem is at the grand age 66 and only getting better. All right, next up. We've got Ryan Lohner who writes, if I understood DC Fandom correctly, the big new star of all their movies and shows is a spinning logo symbol. Yeah, I was so glad to hear other people wrote to me, because Rob, when I was doing the live stream, it didn't matter if I was on YouTube or on DC Fandom's official website. I was constantly getting buffering issues. And just to make sure, I did a speedtests.net. I was getting like 700-800 download. I went to other YouTube channels. Everything was streaming fine. I was only having problems with the DC Fandom thing. And I was starting to think it was maybe just me. But then I got a bunch of emails. I've been getting a lot of emails from people saying, nope, it wasn't just you. We were having the same issues. But I don't think you had any. Did you have any streaming issues? Did you have any buffering issues with it yourself?
Maybe a little, but it wasn't anything. It wasn't anything. A little bit. I mean, a little bit. There was a few times, but I can only imagine how many people were watching it. I mean, we take for granted our internet technology, but how many people were watching the show at that one time?
Yeah.
A lot.
True. By the way, I want to give a shout out to John Ferreira, who has sent in like 3 quick super chat badges in the live chat. Thank you, John. I appreciate that very much, man. All right, let's move on here. Scott Brown Rice. DC Fandome was okay. It had some interesting stuff, but the highlight of the event was the Batman trailer. Absolutely. It was awesome. This is the Batman movie I've always wanted, full of hate and anger. The hallway where he is taking gunfire. Wow. And that theme is incredible. Rob, it's not often that we watch a trailer and I am haunted by the music in it. The music in that trailer was such a perfect marriage between the visuals in the trailer and what we were seeing. And it was, I'm definitely not saying this is going to be the greatest Batman of all time. I don't expect this movie to be better than The Dark Knight, but I will tell you this, it's the greatest Batman trailer I've ever seen. Like, I feel pretty safe in saying that. For me, it was the greatest Batman trailer I've ever seen. Rob, you've had a little bit of chance to marinate on now. What do you think about that Batman trailer?
Dude. I mean, you know, they talked about there's more of a Batman Year One vibe. Again, it's like, okay, after the Tim Burton era, the Schumacher era, the Christopher Nolan era, the Zack Snyder era, how are you going to make Batman new and unusual and fun or unique for an audience? And going back into a more crime thriller, Fincher-esque Seven, real world kind of Alex Proyas is the Crow. I was surprised. I mean, from a year ago and then this trailer, I mean, this Batman looks like an unrelenting MFer. And I'm just like, bruh, I mean, bring that on. I want to see a young Batman who, and I already like, well, Batman doesn't kill, Rob. I'm sure we're going to get that. But you know what, dude? I watched that trailer and I was like, that end, we talked about it, when the Batmobile comes out of the flames.
Oh,
and
dude.
then Penguin is upside down and they've got the upside down shot of Batman coming and then the logo coming in, Batman. I'm like, yes. I mean, I'm like, yeah, man, that's what I want. And the thing is, here's what I don't get. A lot of people are so, people send me the Simpsons meme, old man yelling at clouds. But what I love is all of the different interpretations of Batman. Like, I've always loved it. And it came out of, I remember when Dark Knight Returns came out, because I bought it off the rack, how different it was for people. And it was so shocking. And then we got a lot of Elseworlds Batman, like Gotham by Gaslight or Vampire Batman or whatever. And I think we're getting that on movies and film now. And I never thought that would happen. And I love these various interpretations. It reinvents the character. It makes him relevant for modern audiences. And when I'm seeing some thug unleashed with a machine gun on Batman and it's bouncing off him like he has superpowers, even though I know he doesn't, but he's got armor that he's created. I'm like, dude, come on. How much fun does this movie look?
It looks so good. And listen,
so
guys,
good.
We're going to actually need to cut today's shows a little bit short. I've got an engagement I have to take care of here. So today's show is going to be a little bit shorter than normal, but thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to come and hang out with us here on the John Campea Show today. Don't forget, the show will be back again tomorrow. Rob, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your thoughts on Eternals as well. In the meantime, where can people follow you in your adventures online?
You can follow me on YouTube at The Burnett Work. Find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or of course on Twitter at Burnett RM.
Thanks so much, Rob. And of course, you guys can follow me on Twitter simply at John Campea. Guys, don't forget, do come back tomorrow. Special thank you to all you guys who sent in the super chat badge and live chat, and those of you who sent in the live comments and questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. Number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And don't worry if you sent one in and we didn't get to it yet. It's coming up, so hang tight. You're going to get to it as well. Guys, that'll do it for us today on the John Campea Show. Thanks so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.